everyone, it's Miss Brooks with your Daily Dose of Math. Today we're going to continue our discussion of Section 2, Chapter 1, Solving Linear Equations. As we continue with Section 2, we're going to focus on solving multi-step equations. When working with multi-step equations, there are various things within the problem we will have to undo. So it's important to have a set of steps to follow as a guideline for where to begin. This slide goes over the 5 different steps that you can use to solve a multi-step equation. Do keep in mind, not every problem is going to have each and every one of these steps. So we're just using them as a guideline to follow, not this has to be set in stone every single time. With that being said, let's take a look at the 5 different steps that I have written for you. The first step says to perform any distribution, looking for the parentheses. So if you have any parentheses in the problem, you would probably want to multiply those out first. Our second step says to combine your like terms on each side of the equal sign. It's very important that when you solve an equation, you simplify both sides as much as they can be before trying to do anything else in the problem. The third step is to add or subtract variable terms to get all variables on the same side of the equal sign. For right now, step 3 is going to be irrelevant in this video because we're not going to have variables on both sides just yet. The fourth step would be to isolate the variable term by subtracting or adding the constant from each side of the equal sign. So we always want to make sure we get that variable term by itself. And then the last step would be to multiply or divide both sides of the equation depending on what is left with the variable. Our first example problem is 3 times the quantity x minus 8 equals 21. So I'm going to begin this problem by distributing to 3 to both the x and the 8. When I distribute, that's the same thing as multiplying each term in the parentheses by the coefficient on the outside. So 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. So I now have 3x minus 24 equals 21. If you take a look, this is now a 2-step equation to solve. So to solve this equation, I want to get 3x by itself. So I need to get rid of the minus 24 by adding 24 to both sides. When I do this, on the left the 24's cancel each other out, so I just have 3x, and 21 plus 24 is 45. Now, to just get x by itself, we have to get rid of the 3. Since it says 3x, we know that multiplication is occurring. We assume there's like a dot in between the 3 and x. So I'm going to do the opposite and divide 3 by both sides. The 3's will cancel on the left, so I have x equals, and 3 into 45. If you don't know that on the top of your head, just do your long division off to the side. 3 goes into 4 once, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. So our answer is x equals 15. Like always, I can check my answer by plugging the number I get back in for the variable. So if I start with the original equation, when I plug in 15 for x, I should find that left side will equal right side. 15 minus 8 is 7, and 3 times 7 is 21. So I know the answer is correct. Our second example is 2 times the quantity x plus 4, all divided by 3, minus 8 equals 32. I can already tell by looking at the problem it's going to be a little bit more steps than the previous example. So what we first want to do is distribute. In the numerator of the fraction, we can see that there is a set of parentheses. So we want to multiply the 2 with both the x and the 4 and simplify the numerator. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. All of that still divided by 3. We still have the minus 8, and that's going to be equal to 32. Our next step, now that we've distributed, is we're going to want to isolate the part of our equation that has the variable. In this case, that is the entire fraction, 2x plus 8 over 3. So if I want to get what's in the box by itself, I have to get rid of the minus 8 that's currently with it by adding 8 to both sides. On the left, that's going to leave me with the fraction, 2x plus 8 all over 3 equals, and 32 plus 8 is 40. At this point, I now want to clear any fractions that I have in the problem. So when I go to clear the fraction, I need to get rid of the division by 3. My goal is to get this numerator by itself. So the opposite of dividing by 3 on both sides is to multiply by 3 on both sides. When I multiply by 3 on both sides, on the left, division and multiplication of the same number cancel each other out. So I just have 2x plus 8. And on the right, 40 times 3 is 120. So we now have a two-step equation left to solve. We want 2x by itself, so we're going to subtract the 8 on both sides. And you can continue this line. The 8's cancel on the left, so we have 2x. And on the right, 120 minus 8 would be 112. One more step, we need to get x by itself. So it's currently being multiplied with 2. We're going to want to divide 2 on both sides. So the 2's cancel, we have x equals. And again, if you don't know what 2 into 112 is, do your long division off to the side. 2 goes into 11 5 times. That's 10. We subtract to get 1, bring down the 2. And 2 goes into 12 6 times. So our answer to this problem would be x equals 56. And remember, you can always check your answer just by plugging it back in for the variable. So if I plugged in 56 back in for x, and then simplified this, I should get that the left side is the same as the right side. So order of operations, first it says parentheses. So if we take a look, we need to do 56 plus 4, that's 60. We would then want to multiply. 2 times 60 is 120, which will be divided by 3. Subtract the 8, and we're hoping that's 32. 3 goes into 120 40 times, and 40 take away 8 is equal to 32. So since the left side would end up being the right side, we know our answer is correct. Our third and final example is 7m minus 4 minus 9m minus 36 equals 0. When we go to solve this equation, the first thing we're doing is looking to see if there's any parentheses. There is not, so we're going to skip to the second step, which says to combine any like terms. So like terms would mean that we have the same variables or we have no variables. So if I look at this problem, I have sets of like terms. I have 7m and I have negative 9m. These two terms would be considered like terms because both of them have the variable m. So when I combine these, I'm just going to combine the coefficients. 7m minus 9m, 7 minus 9 is negative 2, and then we just keep the variable with it. I also have a second set of like terms, which would be my constants, -4 and -36. Neither one of these numbers have a variable with them, so I can combine these two together as well. -4 minus 36. Remember, when you add two negatives, it stays negative, and 4 plus 36 is 40. So I have simplified the left side to be -2m minus 40, and I'm going to drop down equals 0. This is a two-step equation at this point, so we're planning to get the m by itself, but first I have to get rid of the minus 40. So I'm going to add 40 to both sides. On the left, that's going to leave me with -2m. And on the right, 0 plus 40 is 40. Now again, this is where you need to pay close attention. -2m. Since there's nothing between the number and the variable, we assume multiplication. So the opposite right now would be to divide both sides by our coefficient -2. So on the left, the negatives 2 cancel, so we have m equals, and a positive divided by a negative is negative. 40 divided by 2 is 20. So m equals -20. It is time for your first U-try. Please pause the video and try to solve the following problem on your own. When you have finished solving, resume the video to check your answer. The first step that you want to do to solve this problem is to distribute the 2 to both the x and the 9 in the parentheses. 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 9 is 18. So we now have on the left 2x plus 18 is equal to 10. This is now just a two-step equation left to solve. So we want to get the 2x by itself by removing the plus 18. The opposite of adding 18 would be to subtract 18 on both sides. On the left, the 18s will cancel, so we're left with 2x equals, and 10 minus 18. So 18 minus 10 is 8, and since 18 was bigger, this would be a -8. Now we just want x. X is being multiplied with 2, so we need to divide 2 on both sides. And we will have that x is equal to a negative divided by a positive is negative, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So x equals -4. Your second U-try is 4 plus 3x minus 1, all divided by 2 equals 9. Please pause the video and try to attempt this problem yourself. When you have finished trying, resume the video to check your answer. The first step in this problem is to always isolate the variable. So we need to get the fraction part by itself because that is where the variable is located. By boxing in the fraction, I see that the only thing left on the left-hand side of the equals bar is a +4, and that is being added to the fraction. So I'm going to need to subtract the 4 on both sides. When I subtract 4, I'm left with 3x minus 1 divided by 2 equals 9 minus 4 is 5. At this point, we want to start getting the variable by itself some more. So if we take a look, the variable is in the numerator of the fraction. So we want to clear the fraction because that's the only thing left on the left-hand side. So to clear a fraction, remember the denominator is division. So it's currently being divided by 2. So we're going to want to multiply 2 on both the left and the right-hand side. Multiplying and dividing by the same number cancel each other out, so you're just left with 3x minus 1 equal to 5 times 2 is 10. We now have a two-step equation. So we're going to get 3x by itself, get rid of minus 1 by adding 1 to both sides, So 3x is going to equal 11. And then since 3 and x are being multiplied, divide 3 on both sides. So on the left, the 3's are going to cancel. So we're left with x equals. And on the right, 3 does not go into 11 perfectly. So when this happens, when our numbers don't go perfectly into each other, we're going to leave our answers as fractions. We do want to make sure to simplify those fractions though. So if we think 11 and 3, there is no number that goes into both of those, so that's as simplified as it'll get. So our final answer would be x equals 11/3. Now if you made this a mixed number when you tried it yourself, you could have also said that the answer was 3 2/3. That is the equivalent mixed number. However, remember, I'm going to leave things as improper fractions, and that's how most of your future teachers will do it as well. So it is not necessary to make things a mixed number. Your third U-try is 7 equals 5y minus 13 minus y. Please pause the video and attempt this U-try yourself. When you have finished solving, resume the video to check your answer. To solve this problem, the first thing we're looking for is to see if anything needs distributed. There are no parentheses in my problem, so I'm moving on to the second step, which says to combine your like terms. So on the left, I only have a 7, so I cannot do anything with that but drop it down. However, on the right, I have 5y minus 13 minus y. Remember, when we're looking for like terms, we're looking for things that look very similar to each other. So I see that I have a 5y and I have a negative y. They're going to be like terms because each one of those pieces has a y in it. Now, one thing to realize is that when we have a negative y, we're going to assume that that's a negative 1 y. So when I combine 5y and negative 1y, remember, we're just combining the coefficients. So 5 minus 1 is 4, and then we're going to keep the y with that. And then just make sure that you drop down the minus 13. We don't want to forget about that piece of our equation. By combining our like terms, we now have a two-step equation. So to get 4y by itself, we have to get rid of minus 13. We're going to add 13 to both sides. When I add 13 to both sides, on the left I have 7 plus 13, which is 20. And on the right, since the 13's cancel, I'm only left with 4y. Since I only have 4y, I need y by itself. The 4 and y are being multiplied. We're going to divide by 4 on both sides. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And on the right, since the 4's will cancel, we have our variable y. So the answer to this U-try is y equals 5. This concludes our lesson on solving multi-step equations. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and we'll see you next time when you tune in for your daily dose of math with Miss Brooks.